Mark, it is so lovely to be here with you today. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's start off. Tell me about exactly what GoBolt does.
So GoBolt is a tech-enabled, sustainably driven end-to-end logistics company, which is a bit of a mouthful, which basically means that we take product into our warehouses, we move it across our network, and we get it to shoppers.
Interesting. So who's your target customer?
So we are increasingly working with enterprise customers, so mostly Fortune 500, to intelligently distribute their inventory, manage their middle mile and their last mile delivery.
And how did you get the idea for this? Tell me about the founding story here.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one where it's actually nothing to do with what we do today. So we've kind of stumbled into what we are now,
Okay.
so bear with me. The business started as a company called Second Closet. We would pick up, store, and return people's stuff. It was a valet storage company. So we were essentially a 3PL for your things. We launched into the international student market where we would store international student stuff over the summer, bring it back to them in September, and kind of rinse and repeat. And we launched that business by basically breaking into dorm room buildings and slipping business cards under their dorm room doors and putting flyers in front of urinals and inside of bathroom stalls.
I love it.
And so with $500, we built a $20K a month business in 2 weeks. And we said, okay, well, we should probably quit the jobs that we haven't started yet and do this full time.
That's really cool. So then how did you take it then from dorm room to being an actual company?
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that we're still pinching ourselves on. But when we started, it was, 5 of us in the business, scaling. I think in our first year, we ended with 12 people in 2017. Now we're well over 1,000. And what we found was that our best users were actually businesses, people that would store their stuff, whether it was chief brand officers at clothing companies or community managers at co-working spaces. They would use us now to store their business stuff and move around for business solutions. And then so we said, why don't we just build software and solutions for you specifically? And that's sort of when the business took off as more of a traditional 3PL that we layered a ton of tech and innovation around.
Cool. So now how did, parents, friends, people in your life react when you said, right out of college, you're going to just start your own company? Was there any doubts or was it hard?
Yeah, I had distinctly 2 groups of friends that had 2 distinct opinions.
Okay.
And so my brother and I were on our own since I was 17. So we were totally financially independent. We were just living together and we had moved out. So we were, it was basically do or die. And I was in the mindset of getting like a typical corporate job and having like a stable life. So when I was recruited into management consulting and had this, pretty amazing salary coming out of university, I was like, okay, well, our life is now set and we can kind of breathe a sigh of relief. So when I told my friends that I was quitting the job that I didn't start yet to do this and make basically nothing and eat ramen noodles all day, there were some people looked at me weird and others were like, yeah, this is totally what you should be doing. And I convinced my co-founder Heinrich to start with me and quit his job, which was even better than mine. And we are now building this incredible business.
Amazing. Talk to me about your fundraising journey and how that's been for you.
So I've never been a great fundraiser. I've had a couple other businesses that I probably should have raised money for that had really good steam, but I just operated them on a cash flow positive basis and took the money, as I said, like we were totally on our own. So and used that to pay through school. But we've been very fortunate. I met an angel investor that really believed in what we were doing and believed in us as human beings. And we were able to raise a $500K seed round in 2017, which then went to a $2 million round, a $10 million round, a 20, 110, 75. So all told, we've raised a little over 175 million to date.
That's incredible. And what has fundraising afforded you and your company?
It's afforded you to take experiments. It's afforded us to take experiments at varying degrees of return horizon. So when we think about making long-term bets, you can have this, we're on this EV transition and we really believe the future of logistics is sustainable. And so we're investing tens of millions of dollars into electric sustainability like infrastructure, so charging networks, vehicles, et cetera. So that's something that's like a mid to long-term return that we still do today. But there's other things like R&D and software development and product that we make a lot of bets on as well.
That's one thing I want to touch on with sustainability, because the thing I liked about your company so much is that that's so core to what you do. Can you explain that a little bit more and any goals you have for climate change or sustainability or ways to help?
Yeah, we want to be known as the business that prove that you can run a sustainable last mile delivery. And we don't get fussed that others are attempting the same thing. In fact, we offer our insights up to partners and competitors in the industry all the time. Because it's not a winner take all market. And the more of us come together to collaborate, the more we can actually innovate at a faster pace. And so we really believe that come one, come all. So I talk to competitors all the time about their sustainability journey and how they should think about it, and share kind of trials and tribulations that we've gone through. And what we want to do is electrify as much of our last mile delivery as possible. So we've recently transitioned to be an asset light business where we are layering our software over other fleet operators and logistics entrepreneurs to expand our first party network that we have control over. And then we're going to help them electrify as well. And so ultimately the goal is to do 100% of our zone 1, zone 2 deliveries on an EV vehicle.
Wow. Where are you right now in that goal?
So we have a truck division and we have a parcel division. So
Okay.
truck, think like, 2 people in a truck delivering like a sofa, and think parcel delivering like a poly bag of apparel.
Okay.
On the apparel side of things and the small pack, over half of our deliveries are done on an EV today, and almost a third of our deliveries are done on a truck. But by the end of this year, those numbers will be over 90%.
Amazing. And that's interesting that you say that you actually talk to your competitors and collaborate.
Yeah.
Because my next question was going to be, who are your competitors? And then if you're so open with them, how are you setting yourself apart and setting yourself up to succeed?
Yeah, a lot of our competitors are half a century old plus. So these are businesses that are really stuck in their ways. And when Heinrich and I started the business, we always used to look at these companies and say, well, why do they always just like resort to how they've always done things? And now that we are running our business, I think we understand how difficult it is to inspire change in a business because it has to come from within. It has to be a cultural change. And so I think we've done a great job at GoBolt to set a culture of innovation and try new things and not always having to be right. And so with our competitors, we know that our culture is really a huge differentiator. The spirit of the business and how we're going about affecting change, I think, is different. And we don't think that's easily replicable. Maybe that's naive, but we believe it. And at least that's what we tell ourselves. So we're pretty proud of what we're doing. And when we talk to competitors, we're just sharing the practical journey of what we're doing and practical advice of how they can think about their electrification journey differently.
Interesting. So talk to me about the scale of your company. Can you tell me about your revenue, how many customers you have, anything like that?
Yeah, so the business is just over 7 years old. We are over 1,000 people strong and counting. We do 9 figures plus of revenue annually, and that's growing at a pretty rapid clip, and we're really excited about what the future holds for us. Excellent.
What would you say is the most challenging part of running your company?
The most challenging part, this is a question I get asked all the time, and my answer probably changes because it's different by the quarter. I would say right now it's just driving like a ton of alignment as we're growing at this like hyper scale at an already pretty large scale. And so most of what my job is now is communicating like our mission and values and how that should affect our decision making, which sounds super fluffy, but it actually is a massive amount of time spent and effort because it's really mentally taxing to manage different departments against one goal and making sure that everyone understands how it all interconnects.
Is there ever a world in which you would consider selling your company? Is that the goal? And if so, what would it take?
We're very mission driven right now and we're having a ton of fun doing it. So I think we would need to find a partner that would help us accelerate what we're already doing. And we'd want to make sure that wherever we land and whatever we do, whether it's us running the business for the next 20 years or us finding a partner that can help us accelerate, that it's going to be mission driven and it allows us to do what we're doing better and faster. Excellent.
Is there anything that you would tell your younger self the day before you launched your company that you wish you knew now?
That's also a good question. It's one I get asked a lot.
Oh, okay.
I think, and I don't have a great answer for it because I think, I believe in the butterfly effect. I think everything that's happened so far has happened for a reason. And it's taught us and galvanized us in the way that it has, and we're really proud of where we are today. What I would probably say is be comfortable navigating through the unknown. I think whenever we're faced with a challenge or an opportunity, folks that are on the team that are super seasoned are evaluating different paths based on their experience. But I think one thing with founders is that you have to really trust your gut. And sometimes when folks have experience, counterintuitively, it actually is advice against what your gut feeling is. And what I've found is that 9 times out of 10, we always go back to what the gut feel told us to do. And so I would say trust your gut a little bit more and be more bold in believing in that, even if there's a ton of really experienced, really smart people telling you otherwise. You know your business best and you'll have the most context.
Now, speaking of experience, I know a lot of under 30 community members tell me that they feel a lot of imposter syndrome because they're so young and they're young founders, and it's hard to speak up in a room
Sure.
of older, more experienced people. Do you ever feel like that, and how do you combat that, if so?
I have not felt it yet, and I think
Okay.
part of the reason is, as Hendrik and I built this business, we've always been very heads down. So we've never used anyone else's yardstick to measure our success. We've never looked at competitors to see how they're thinking about what we're doing. We've always been very driven to serve our customer, and so long as our customer told us that we were doing a good job, we would feel like we're doing a good job. And that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Your age, you could be 90, you could be 12, it doesn't really matter. It's just so long as you're driving the right outcomes. And so I think our yardstick is, what does our customer tell us and what does the shopper tell us? And if they're telling us that we're doing a good job, irrespective of our age, then we think that we have the right to be doing what we're doing.
So Mark, you said before that you were on kind of the precipice of do you take the leap into entrepreneurship, or do you go into this stable job? For you, when did you know like the risk was worth the reward, and what advice did you have for people who are kind of in between both of those worlds right now?
It's a great question, and I think back to like two distinct conversations that we had at the time. One was with our angel investor that really believed in us and seeded the business, and he said that, Mark, you can always go back to this managed consulting job. Hendrik can always go back into product management. Those jobs will be there waiting for people like you, and you should just feel comfortable taking this leap. I actually was not nervous about that at all. What I was more nervous about was talking to my managing director at the consulting company saying, hey, I know I'm supposed to start in 2 weeks. However, I'm trying to give you 2 weeks notice because I think that's what you're supposed to do. But there's really no playbook for when you haven't started yet. And I remember just like starting to smile and look at me and say, you know what? All the partners are making bets on if you started, how long you would actually stay for. And so this is totally what you should do, and you should feel comfortable doing it. But keep in mind, like we were just graduating university. So, grand scheme of things, we had fundraising secured. We were, able to live off of ramen noodles and eggs, and that was okay for a while. And it was just a ton of fun moving and breaking things. I think the younger you are, the less risk you have for others around you. And I think as we've grown the business, we have over 1,000 people, and I now have to consider every single one of them in the decisions that I make. But at the time, it was really just myself and a couple people. And so it made it super easy when you didn't have a mortgage, you didn't have like all this overhead, there weren't like tuition, there wasn't tuition to pay. So I think the younger you are, the more competitive advantage you innately have to make financially daring decisions. Whereas later on in life, it's a lot harder because there's more at stake. So I think the sooner you can get into entrepreneurship, I think that's why you see so many brilliant young people today do really crazy, innovative things, is because they're just crazy enough to try and do it. And there's not these life encumbrances that they may hold them back. And so I think you need to make smart, calculated moves. And at the time, we didn't know what the reward was. We just were taking the risk, but we were fully prepared to see it through.
Outside of your customers, is there one business rule that you operate by no matter what?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, my barber back in the day used to tell me that the customer's always right. And so when I told him to cut a little bit more off the top, he would be like, okay, but customer's always right. So I think that's a cardinal rule, but sometimes maybe not. One thing that I've gotten very comfortable with as of late, and that I think has been really clear, is that there are really three groups of people that will help your business get to where it needs to be. And I think that people's ability to move between each of those curves is what defines how big their business can get. And so the first stage is really agents of chaos. Everyone knows this. It's like 1 to 10 person teams building and just breaking things and just building a lot of value in a chaotic environment. You then bring in that 1 or 2 person team member that will help drive a little bit more sanity and start to try to create processes, whether that's a Google form, using Asana, something to just create structure, meeting minutes, calendar invites. And then you have people that really like live and thrive in that environment. They document everything, they store it away, they title it nicely. And the agents of chaos aren't always the people that love to work in that like really rigid, structured environment.
Yep.
And some companies hold on to people that are agents of chaos for a while because they really like that rapid build, and they associate rapid equity value creation and building a business with those people. And they don't make that transition ultimately to where they need to be. And I think one thing that we had to get comfortable with as our business grew at over 300% a year for the past 6-7 years is that things change quickly, and we need to make sure that we're bringing on the people that can help us get to that next level.
That makes sense. So speaking of next levels, talk to me about what's ahead for you. Anything in 2024 that's new and exciting you can tell me about?
It's more of the same. We want to be in more markets faster. We want to leverage our asset light model to help more merchants electrify their volume. we're on this tear where we want to get to $1 billion in revenue as a business, and so that's the next big milestone for us.
How are you going to do that?
More of the same, just more markets, faster, working with bigger, better brands that we're already fortunate to work with a lot of, and just hopefully keeping doing good work and staying kind of anchored on our values.
Excellent. And one last question for you: what would you like your legacy to be?
That's a very good question. I think it's interesting to think about that at my age right now. I think hopefully there's a couple more impact areas we can have outside of Go Bold, but within Go Bold, we'd like to be known as change makers that really challenge the status quo in an industry that has literally not changed for decades, and prove that it can be done despite it being a multi-trillion-dollar space.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.